How does a content creator, a streamer on Twitch, or a video maker on YouTube in the gaming sector actually earn their money, make a living? I'd like to show you that with an example I know pretty well. Myself. Writing Bull specializes in city building games, strategy games, and gaming on PC. Since 2019, I've been working full-time as a so-called content creator. And this is a video that I've been wanting to make for a while as part of my Scheinwerfer series. It's a commentary format on YouTube that came about because I have a Patreon, a crowdfunding site, and it was a reward that you could unlock there a few years ago. These rewards are no longer offered on Patreon, but I continue with the Spotlight series. Once promised, I see it through, and I really enjoy making these videos. So how does a creator earn their money? A few small limitations. I will show you all the structures, the different sources of income, how you work, how you think, and what the legal situation looks like. I won't mention any numbers, on the one hand, out of respect for my contractual partners, and on the other hand, out of respect for my own privacy. First of all, what does it look like legally and formally? I am self-employed with a business license. That means I worked in a completely different profession until 2014, and I did that for a very long time. I am now 63 years young. I worked for radio for many, many decades, over 30 years. For public radio as a freelancer, mainly for WDR5, for Deutschlandfunk, but also for other stations. And there I was what they call a star freelancer, a regular freelance contributor. That means someone who had a special legal status there, mostly freelance, but with a few social benefits that you also received from the stations you mainly worked for. And as I said, I did that for a very long time and was paid back then for the pieces I produced, for the research, for the reports, for the features. I got paid for that, so not for the time spent or any monthly, weekly, or daily fixed salary, but I was paid for the work I delivered. Just like a baker gets paid for every roll that goes over the counter. That went on until 2014, and then for a few more years after that. In 2014, I started regularly publishing Let's Play videos about building and strategy games on my YouTube channel. At first, it was just a small side job. At some point, YouTube ad revenue started coming in as well, meaning for the ads that are shown at the beginning. When you watch YouTube, as a content creator, you get some money for that once you monetize your YouTube channel. That requires submitting the right application to YouTube. Or rather, you submit it to the parent company, Google, it gets stamped and approved, and then you earn a bit of money with it. And that was actually my first income from self-employment. Before that, I was self-employed, but in Germany there's another subgroup, a special group called Freiberufler. That's a subgroup of the self-employed, and they don't need a business license in Germany. As someone who earns self-employed income in the traditional sense, like in this case with these YouTube earnings, I also had to go to the authorities, to the city of Cologne, and had to apply for a business license. There, since the term content creator wasn't common back then, I was registered as an influencer or as someone in marketing, advertising, something like that. And with this certificate in hand, I was then able to go to the tax office, or rather to the tax advisor, and everything could be handled correctly and legally. Status: self-employed with a business license. From 2014 to 2019, I continued working as a freelancer for the radio. At the same time, I ran the YouTube channel, and at some point I also started with Twitch, with live streams on Twitch. And gradually the balance shifted. That means I put more and more time into the hobby. The hobby that only brought in very small earnings at first. I very quickly pursued the hobby as professionally as I had previously done creative work at the radio station. I made sure everything ran smoothly from a technical standpoint, reasonably well prepared for the formats for the games, playing them beforehand, and not just blindly doing Let's Plays, as is often the case with many content creators. That means I approached it with a professional attitude, just like I had learned at the radio station. And that led to me investing an incredible amount of time into this hobby, which then also brought a lot of positive feedback. And that then led to me gradually reducing my radio work, also reducing my income from radio, and on the other hand, increasing my freelance work more and more for YouTube and Twitch. The whole thing has two components. Why was that so exciting for me? The first component was the financial one, because before that I really didn't earn much working in radio. Other freelance radio colleagues will confirm that for you as well. There are a few exceptions, a few people who, for example, work for television as freelancers or who have landed hosting jobs. They earn reasonably well, but the vast majority of freelancers who work for radio earn extremely poorly. They're not exactly starving, I wouldn't put it that way, but it's not like you can make a fortune there. That means I was definitely able to earn some extra money through YouTube and Twitch. That motivated me, but I also quickly realized that you can keep expanding it, that I'm filling a niche, and that I can also build a decent income in this niche. Namely, this niche of showcasing current city building games and strategy games for an adult audience, doing a lot of previews, offering many recorded formats together with developers, and also providing a bit of purchase advice. With these current titles, attracting people who want to know what's going to be played soon, or just coming out, what does it look like, show me what you have to say about it. Maybe I can get in touch with a developer through you, indirectly in a stream, in the chat. Those are the things I offered. One thought was why I kept expanding it more and more, because I realized I could earn a decent extra income there. The other thought, however, was that I got much more feedback for my work than I did before at the radio station. There, the individual segment just got broadcast and that was it. You hardly get any listener mail on the radio. There are viewer letters or viewer emails nowadays, or comments on social media that get posted. But you really can't say that the individual authors of normal, completely ordinary, smaller radio segments are drowning in a flood of feedback. The main source of feedback was actually always the editor I worked for and for whom I created these segments. That means you're always kind of left hanging. No one looks over your shoulder and tells you you did this well or you did this badly. There's a bit of feedback, a bit of response when it comes to correcting or editing segments, but it's still relatively little social contact with the people you're working for. And that's different here as a content creator, because you get feedback from your audience on YouTube, in the comment sections, on Twitch, in the chat. That's a completely different form of interaction, and of course it's a lot of fun. Actually, there's a third reason that's just crossing my mind right now. A third reason why being a content creator was more exciting for me than the radio experience. A reason that has become so natural for me in everyday life that I might not even mention it right away anymore. That's simply the fact that I'm freer, much freer, even freer than most of you, to do what I want at work. That means I can come up with my own formats like this video here, or think up my own videos, my own streams, my own topics, and I can implement them on short notice if I want to. Of course, I can also stick to program schedules and previews, program previews, which I also publish. But I do all of that voluntarily. I can also change things at short notice. I can invent a new format, come up with something new. I can spontaneously invite a guest to a talk on Twitch, someone I've always wanted to invite. That means I don't have anyone I have to answer to at work. It was different at the radio station. I know that for most of you it's also different at your jobs, and that's a freedom I really appreciate. These three reasons, more freedom, including creative freedom, a bit more money, and as a third reason, getting more feedback for your work, led to this decision. Diese drei Vorteile bei der Arbeit als Content Creator. These led me to gradually reduce my radio work from 2014 to 2019 and invest more and more time into YouTube and Twitch. I started streaming. At first, I only made video-on-demand content on YouTube, then I added live streams on Twitch. I published more, just put out more videos in terms of quantity, and did more streams. I also looked for more elaborate formats, did collaborations with developers, invited them, initiated talks with experts from the gaming industry, and so on. And all of that was, of course, only possible at some point because I started working much less, significantly less for the radio. Step by step, I reduced it. I gradually announced my departure to one employer, one client, one editorial team after another. When I published my last numbers for the radio, I said goodbye and announced that was it. From then on, in my early or mid 50s, I would be going all in on this one thing. That was definitely a bold step. I was earning better, but basically I gave up a professional existence that had worked for 3 decades for a project that I started, hoping it would also sustain me in the long term. That was also a bit of a risk. And in hindsight, I have to say everything turned out quite well. Looking back, I don't regret taking that step, but at the time it did take a bit of courage to take that leap. And to say, at a somewhat older age, I'm going to completely change my career, goodbye to the old job, and a new job is coming. These freedoms are great, but it's not as easy as it might seem to be a content creator. Surprisingly, I still come across many people who think it just means recording a video or doing a stream, and before and after that, you're just twiddling your thumbs or counting your money. It's actually a bit more work. I can't really describe a typical workday because I don't have a regular office routine where one day is like the next, but there are certain tasks I do every day. I'd be happy to list those for you. In addition to that, there are other tasks that have to be done from time to time. Typical tasks on a day when, let's say, I had a stream the day before. I go and make a new schedule graphic, meaning a new picture that I publish on Twitch, which shows on which day which game is scheduled and at what time. I change the titles of the Twitch streams to the new ones. There's a new text that gets entered there, which I have to write, that notifies people when a stream starts. And I usually change the video that was automatically created during the stream the day before. It gets a different title. It gets a thumbnail. If necessary, I have to create the thumbnail for it. And so on. Then for the new stream on the new day, so-called commands have to be created. That means these are little commands with an exclamation mark in front. For example, if you type exclamation mark game in the chat, you get a sentence about the game. Of course, I have to write that. You can also recommend it in the stream shop or on the game donation page. God knows there are a lot of these commands. They have to be checked daily to see if they're still up to date, if you need to create new ones, if you need to edit the existing ones, and so on. Then I also work partly with timers, meaning with automated bots that run during the stream. I have to check every day if the ones from the previous day are still up to date, if I need to deactivate them, or if I need to create new ones. It works on a similar principle as with the commands. That's the main topic, Twitch streams, then YouTube. The YouTube videos are mostly created during the streams, and they have to be uploaded individually to YouTube. Each video gets a description, an accompanying text, which includes a collection of links and a short introduction at the beginning about what this series is about. A title has to be found. I have to create thumbnails, images, those little preview pictures you see in your subscriptions feed before you click on anything. I make those myself. I taught myself a bit of image editing. And then the YouTube videos also need to be managed from start to finish. That means I add a playlist you can access by clicking the link that pops up at the top, a button like that, and at the end there's the end screen, where images are shown that I set up and predefine, which you can click on to watch more videos. Done. Then of course there are also comments from you on YouTube every day. I go through those. Usually once or twice a day I sit down and check what new comments are there, and I think about which ones I give a heart to and which ones I don't. Every now and then a comment gets deleted. That's usually the case when people use the wrong tone. So it's not about writing something I don't like content-wise, but rather using a tone that I don't want to become the standard on my channel. I've experienced as a content creator that rude remarks or trolling tend to attract more trolling. And the good atmosphere in our comment sections is due to the fact that it's actively moderated. And that when something comes up that stinks and seems off to me, that I consistently remove it so it doesn't affect others. And then, of course, every now and then I also give substantive replies to comments, even if it's just saying, I don't know the answer to your question, but here's the link to our Discord, the community Discord that I run. You can go there, there's a text channel called whatever, and it's about your game. Post your question there. Then, of course, there's daily contact with my team. We have about 12, about a dozen community moderators. Many of them are responsible on Twitch for managing the chat, regularly posting things, making sure the rules are followed, offering help, greeting people, and so on and so forth. They also moderate and run the Discord server, make sure there's structure there, and make posts themselves. Then there are individual projects that run from time to time, some events that are organized by the moderators. And I'm constantly in touch with them, answering questions, giving support, sharing my opinion here and there, and so on. But the biggest part of my work during the day is simple office work with people outside my team and outside the audience, meaning with game companies. When you have a bit more reach, you get stuff sent to you, text sent to you, long press releases, mostly in English. They have to be searched through and checked to see if it's a game that could potentially be interesting for me. Most of the time it's not. I usually notice that quickly, and then the email gets deleted. Or it's archived, and in other cases I look up the game, click on the Steam link or Google it, take a look at the game, and consider whether it would be suitable for the program. It's mainly the sheer volume that makes it easy. And then, of course, sometimes I also want something from people, so I proactively reach out and write to a developer or a publisher. Hey, I saw your game, by the way. Who was it for me? Especially many German-speaking smaller developers occasionally get early messages from me and are happy when I say, I discovered your game. It suits me. You probably don't have any press contacts yet, is that right? You might be newcomers in the industry. Do you want to stream a preview of the game with me on my channel, reveal some gameplay together? People on the other side are always happy about that. That's always the case, of course, even without money, with that kind of early stage stuff. And it's always a little bit of game promotion that I do myself for the gaming scene in Germany as well. The whole thing sounds a bit spectacular now, but it's actually really important for many developers of smaller games to be approached in this way. Yeah, and what else is part of daily life? Taxes, of course. I do have a tax advisor, but the tax advisor also regularly needs documents, or I have to provide information. That's part of it. And then just a lot of little things. Insurance matters. I'm self-employed. That means you insure yourself. You have to take care of your own pension and life insurance and so on, handle correspondence and make the payments yourself. Of course, the accounts also have to be maintained and managed. That's a different effort compared to someone who is permanently employed somewhere and just gets their salary or wages transferred once a month. Instead, I have to regularly check the accounts, I have to check on things, I have to write invoices to clients that I have, to game companies, for example, who have booked a stream with me for a specific date. I have to send them invoices. I have to check if the invoices have been paid at some point. Little spoiler, surprisingly often they haven't. I have to send politely worded payment reminders or eventually dunning letters. I have to keep checking all of this constantly and so on. And I could rattle off this list endlessly, almost infinitely, with lots of little trivial things. Those must be constantly dealt with. But now let's get down to business. What are the individual sources of income as a self-employed person? You offset income and expenses. In the end, you have a corresponding profit. That's how it works. And that's why the income also has to be significantly higher than what an employee earns in salary or wages, because you also have more expenses than someone who is permanently employed somewhere. The income of self-employed people has to be in a higher range, because it only gets offset against these expenses, and because you also have to insure yourself, since it's not covered by the employer. Retirement insurance has to be set up by yourself and so on. What are individual sources of income? Let's just list them quickly. First, what is probably obvious to you anyway? YouTube ad revenue. When a YouTube video starts, there's advertising at the beginning. There's also advertising around the video on YouTube. YouTube is a subsidiary of Google, and they measure that and send me money for it once a month. So my share of what they've earned through me, what they've earned from advertisers, even when people become channel members, that counts too. I have very few channel members, about 12 or 15. However, I don't promote that very aggressively either, but those are steady earnings that come in. I'm grateful for every single one. Thanks to everyone who does that. You can also always see a random selection of the channel members pinned at the top here. If you go to the YouTube page, in the top row, you'll see a few icons and a few nicknames mentioned. These are the people who voluntarily, without having to, get involved in a special way. YouTube earnings, then also similarly Twitch earnings. People pay for my streams on Twitch, and there are also ads that play before the Twitch streams. I have personally disabled ads from running in between. I don't like that. The earnings aren't that high either. You don't actually make that much money from what runs in between during a live stream. And to me, it's more important that I can build up suspense myself and tell a good story during a stream. Without an ad popping up in between at a time that, for me, would be unbelievably annoying when I'm designing my video series, that's more important to me than having the extra income from that kind of advertising. That's why I completely avoid ads in between, because I recently wondered if that really works, since in some cases people have said they supposedly saw ads in between. Maybe it's also a mistake, or Twitch overrides the setting I chose. There's no ads running in between. For that, I get a share of money from Twitch once a month. Twitch isn't a subsidiary of Google like YouTube, but a subsidiary of Amazon, the big corporations. That's big businesses involved in both cases. Other Twitch earnings are voluntary donations from viewers. That means these are the so-called subscriptions. There is either the option of a normal subscription, which is a paid one. That means you pay an amount of money on Twitch. You click on the corresponding button and then you pay money for a month to support this Twitch streamer here. And after a month, it will be renewed as well unless you cancel it. These subscriptions come in different tiers. They don't cost an incredible amount of money. It's about $4 to $5 per month. But it's still an amount that not everyone can afford, and for each person who chooses to do this voluntarily without having to, I am extremely grateful that they do so. Those are the subscriptions. There's also a special type of subscription called Prime subscriptions. Because Twitch is a subsidiary of Amazon, anyone who has Amazon Prime can give one Twitch streamer, not more and only one at a time, a free Prime subscription. If there are people among you on YouTube who didn't know this yet and would like to try it out, feel free to do so. Just click on my Twitch page. It works even if I'm not streaming. The link is below on YouTube in the description. And there's a button there. I think it's a white star on a blue background or something like that. And if you click on it, you have the option, if you then link your Amazon account, with Twitch, if you create a Twitch account and then indicate that you also have Amazon, then you can give that Twitch Prime subscription, which does not renew automatically. It only lasts for 30 days and doesn't cost you anything. That means basically you're forcing Amazon to pay money to Twitch. Twitch takes exactly half of that, 50% gives it to the streamer, in this case me, and sends the other half back to the parent company, Amazon. That means it's a small case of de-networking Amazon that you're doing at that moment, and it doesn't cost you anything and benefits me. With the other subscriptions, I get more money. It's 50% with the Amazon Prime subscriptions. With the paid subscriptions, it's 80%. That stays with me. 20% is taken by Twitch. And then there are the so-called gift subscriptions. That means people can gift one or more subscriptions, usually during the stream, but it can also be done outside the stream to viewers in the chat. That means people who can't or don't want to afford a subscription themselves are randomly given one by someone who, for example, gifts 5 subscriptions. Then suddenly, 5 people are happy to receive a subscription and I get some money for it. These are all revenues that basically fall under the heading of crowdfunding. It's not independent crowdfunding, it runs through the big tech giants, but basically that's what it is. These are voluntary contributions that no one has to make. And if it exceeds a critical amount, if it surpasses a critical mass of revenue, if enough people do it, then the content creator gets into a position to finance themselves with it and make it their profession. Those are the Twitch earnings, but there are also a few others. In addition, there are so-called affiliate earnings, which means sales that I earn a commission on. The main one is Games Planet. That's the shop that buys its game keys. They buy directly from the big publishers or the small development studios, and then they sell them themselves a bit cheaper than on Steam and Epic. They don't generate new keys themselves, but instead buy Steam or Epic keys from the publishers and then resell them with a slightly lower profit margin, making them a bit cheaper. That's the shop I work with, and for every sale, if you go there through any of my links and buy something, a certain percentage of what you pay ends up in my pocket. I also get a monthly statement from Games Planet, a breakdown that shows exactly which games I sold when and how much I earned from them. I also have an Amazon link that I rarely promote, so I earn very little from it. It's also in the YouTube text description below. If you ever make a bigger purchase on Amazon and use my Amazon link to get there, I would, for example, earn a share from it. I rarely promote it, maybe I should do it more often, but now I have. Those are these affiliate things. Then there are also fees that I rarely get for doing jobs, hosting events, or coaching. Hosting jobs, for example, when I hosted the Civilization 7 Summit at Rocket Beans. Then I not only had my travel expenses covered when I went to Hamburg, but I also received a fee for being there for 2 days, arriving a day early, participating in the rehearsal, and hosting the whole event. Or another example, um recently, just this year, I coached a game developer. They're releasing their first computer game, and um they had difficulties with the quality of the title. Of course, I won't mention any names now, that would be totally unfair. I then sat down with them one afternoon and we shared the screen. I showed them how I play their game. They gave me an internal version, which is also up to date. I simply shared my thoughts, what I like, dislike, and what I'd do differently. What the genre standards are for the user interface, what the genre standards are for the tutorial, and what should be improved. And I also send an invoice for that. But these are all things, these hosting gigs and coaching jobs, they come up relatively rarely. What's more important are other sponsorships. For example, I have Asus as a sponsor. That's my main sponsor, who I've had for years. They provide me with most of my hardware, like computers and monitors, mouse and keyboard. I don't have to buy those myself, they provide them for me. And they also make sure that I'm always up to date with the latest and hottest stuff, but in a way that allows me to work properly with it, and so I can showcase these products in my hardware content, and so that the people who go there don't ask themselves, hey, why is Asus giving him a computer that's 5 years old? Of course, that doesn't happen. Instead, everything gets updated every few years. That's very helpful on the one hand because I save costs, but also on the other hand because I get compensation for it. And now the compensation is given to me less for receiving these products, but more because, of course, I mention them. We do 2 PC build streams a year and they take place on Twitch. And the last time, we built a PC and even raffled it off to the live audience, so the Twitch community also got something out of it. And we'll probably do that again this spring. Usually we end up doing about 2 of these streams per year, and then I mention it from time to time. There are little pop-ups in YouTube videos where I point out a headset, a monitor, or something else. Then ads are shown, and that's an example. And those are also things that I get paid for by Asus. And that's completely normal in the industry. It's actually a very common format that many others use as well. And on top of that, I occasionally have changing sponsorship partners who, unlike Asus, don't commit indefinitely but sign a contract with me for 1, 2, or 3 months. Most recently, I had Armed Angels, a clothing and fashion label. Starting from the 12th, I will now be working with Emma, a pillow and bedding accessories company. We'll work together for a month starting in April. I am very happy that I managed to get my private electricity provider that I've been with for decades and really believe in. that they agreed to let me do advertising for them this summer for 3 months, and that they will also pay me for it. I can hardly imagine anything I can identify with more. I have really been with them for 20 or 30 years. I really love that kind of thing. I can totally relate to that. At the end of the day, I rarely do these short-term sponsorships. Colleagues, other streamers do them much more often. I'm very strict about that myself. I get an incredible number of offers to advertise products, but I place great importance on making sure they're companies I really want to stand behind. So products I'm happy to put my face and good name behind. If you apply these criteria pretty strictly, then out of all the offers that come in, most of them are ruled out. And I also don't want to advertise things that are basically just a waste of money. Where I think, yes, those are great products, but they're incredibly expensive and really pricey. And I also don't want to encourage people to spend money on them. Because if the price performance ratio isn't right, meaning if I feel like they're charging an outrageous price just because the brand is cool and the quality of the product doesn't measure up, then I don't want to advertise it, and that definitely limits me. Another way I make money, and this plays a big role, is through sponsorships from publishers. That means companies like, well, I handle everything myself. Recently, it was Ubisoft when I did a preview stream for Anno 117 Pax Romana for the new add-on, which I probably would have done anyway, because I'm really excited about the game and I think it's cool to show the DLC 2 weeks before release. And then the company Ubisoft agreed to pay me a fee for it, even though it wasn't necessary. That's really cool. Sometimes it's also necessary to pay me, but not because I would say it's a low quality game that I don't want to show, but simply because otherwise I wouldn't have even noticed the game. Aufmerksam geworden wäre. There are many examples like that, and that's also how many smaller games and companies make it into my program. When I have 4, 5, or 6 games that could all be covered by me in the same time frame. And you can justify one, you can justify the other, then I often choose the company that says, hey, we'd like to book you. I think that's easy to understand as a freelancer. What I'm really careful about is not showing games, or at least trying not to show games of inferior quality, because the good reputation that I've worked so hard to build up can be ruined incredibly quickly. And I really have to be extremely careful about that. That's not always super simple. This expectation I have of myself, because I often contractually commit to covering a game at a time when I don't yet know 100% how good the release version of this game will be. That means I look at promotional material, marketing material in advance, with a somewhat more critical and professional eye than maybe some others do. And then I consider, does this fit the audience? Does this fit you? Is this a type of game, a genre of game that I know many of you like? What kind of games have they made before? Did those games take off? Did they have good Steam ratings? Can I vouch for it? But in many cases, it's also to some extent. Then at the point when I sign a contract, I take a chance on it. The probability is high that it will be a good game, but I don't know for sure. And every now and then there are games that I show live on Twitch, and then I just stumble over bugs in the game live. And the good thing about it is that I can't even be tempted to act because I'm recording live. And live, you can't cut anything out live. The live audience notices everything. For example, if I spend a long time stuck in the user interface due to poor explanations, or I realize that the game is way too hard or way too easy for me because the management isn't working properly. Or if the game crashes on me live, then the audience also knows it crashed live, so the game's stability isn't quite guaranteed yet. The good thing is that I record live because I can say, you, the audience, you get to see live how a game is doing and can form your own impression. Even if I committed to showing a game at a very early stage. Many people think that if you commit to showing a game, you're also committing to talking it up or saying good things about it. That's definitely not the case. What you're actually committing to, according to the standard contracts, is that you don't make offensive comments about other topics, that you don't badmouth, that you don't drink or smoke weed while doing it. There really are specific clauses about that. And it also says that you shouldn't make offensive comments about this game, that if you criticize, please do so specifically and fairly. I can easily agree to that because that's what I do anyway. I'm more of a balanced type. I don't just sit down in my anger and record a video or stream, so by agreeing to this, I'm just agreeing to something I already do anyway. And then in such contracts, there are often so-called points. I'm forgetting the exact term right now. Points where the developers or publishers would like you to mention certain facts. These are things like, for example, whether there's a single player or multiplayer mode, how many missions are in the campaign when the game is released, who the main character is, and which target audience the game is aimed at. Many of the publishers and developers know that some content creators don't prepare very thoroughly for streams, so they include a few key points in the contracts beforehand and explicitly ask that you mention them. And I'm lucky because those are points I would have mentioned anyway. I'm someone who prepares for the streams and points out these things. Who is the game made for? When is it coming out? Which platforms, target audience? What are the basic mechanics? I would list all of that anyway, whether it's in the contract or not. So it's nothing unpleasant and nothing where I'd have to compromise myself. There was one exception once, but that was years ago. There was this script that was 2 pages long, a PDF document with 2 pages, where a game developer explicitly wanted to dictate how I should talk about a game. The background is, I'm not going to give an example or reveal the game, but it was a game that dealt with a topic that was socially controversial, and they were scared that it would be portrayed in a certain way, so they wanted to play it safe and listed in detail exactly what you were supposed to say. I said, I'm sorry, we had already agreed on everything. We had agreed on the money, on the fee, on the days, on the work involved. I suddenly had the script in front of me, sent it back and said, I'm sorry, I won't do it. It's too detailed for me. The contract fell through. And then there's another one that's a very important source of income, Patreon. Patreon is a crowdfunding site based in the US where a lot of creative people are active and secure a livelihood for themselves and make themselves a bit more independent from these big platforms like YouTube and Twitch or from those sponsorship deals, simply by securing a certain base of monthly income. Not as income, not as wages, not as salary, all of that has to be taxed. The state is definitely involved there too and deducts taxes accordingly. But of all the income I have on Patreon, actually about 93% ends up in my pocket before taxes, not after taxes, before taxes. That means it's more efficient than Twitch, for example, or more efficient than a channel membership on YouTube. If you're thinking, I'd like to support WB, Patreon would be the most efficient way you could do that. That too is completely voluntary. In the beginning, patrons used to get a lot of things, a whole lot of things exclusively, especially the program previews. During COVID, I started making the program previews public, but I kept asking the patrons, are you okay with the fact that services you're actually paying for are now publicly accessible to everyone? To this day, not a single person, not one, has ever complained about it in all these years. No one has ever said, I'm paying for this and want it only for myself. I think that's, in general, a strong character trait. There's no other way to put it. How does Patreon work? You set an amount you want to give. You can choose it completely freely. It's charged monthly. It's always charged at the turn of the month. And you can leave at any time. You can join today, leave tomorrow, or leave after 10 years, however you want. There are also no notice periods. And you can choose the amount yourself. However, Patreon suggests different tiers. I suggest those because I've linked certain things to specific tiers. For example, starting from a certain tier, people you will receive 2 Games Planet voucher codes for 20% off per quarter. These aren't affiliate voucher codes. That means I don't get a share when you make a purchase. It's just a standard discount off the regular price. It's simply a thank you package where Games provides me with these codes for you. Or the patrons at the top tier, the two highest tiers, meet with me about once a quarter for what's called a behind-the-scenes meeting, and we chat for about 2 hours together on Discord. And they give me direct feedback, and I discuss a few things that I can't really talk about publicly but can in a confidential circle. And there are a whole bunch of other things like that. For example, there's a benefit for the top 3 tiers, if I remember correctly. Those are the tiers whose members I send a Christmas gift to every year. Merchandise that you can't buy anywhere. So merchandise that you can't buy anywhere, which I have specially made. There's also a short handwritten card included, which you get from me once a year. For example, it could be a mug with a special design. In previous years, it was once a drinking horn for mead with an engraved bull badge. Every year, it's something different. You also need to maintain a certain level for a set period. I'll put the Patreon link below in the text description and also display it. So up in the corner where the playlists usually are, I guess I'll put the Patreon link there so you can see it. All these earnings, YouTube, Twitch, affiliate earnings, sponsor earnings, Patreon earnings, they all scale with the reach. That means the more people come to me and watch my programs, the higher the earnings. If fewer people come, the earnings go down. And I really noticed it. I noticed that in a positive way during COVID. It sounds embarrassing, and it is kind of embarrassing, but I can't beat around the bush. I benefited from COVID. Not because I mean, like everyone else, I suffered during Corona because I had restrictions in my daily life, had to wear a mask, didn't see people and all that. It wasn't a good time. But for me, purely from a professional point of view, it was a time when a lot of people were stuck at home, working from home or in quarantine and watching streams and videos. And during COVID, in the years when it was particularly virulent, my reach on Twitch in particular grew significantly. A bit on YouTube as well, but primarily on Twitch. And for a limited period of time, my income was significantly above average because of that. More people gave money on Twitch. Because my reach was bigger, I also got more money from sponsors. Because the reach was bigger, I also got more money from publishers who occasionally booked a stream. Because that's also measured by the average reach and so on. There was more activity on Patreon too. We'll see. By now, that's gone again. Corona's gone. By now, things are back to normal times. Not completely, but a good part of that extra reach has been lost again, and I've been brought back to a normal level. I have a bit more reach than before COVID because a few people have definitely stayed. I appreciate that, but as I said, if I may draw a curve on the monitor, if before the viewer numbers maybe went up slowly, during COVID they shot up sharply, and after that they went down to about here and then continued at about this level. I hope you were able to follow this incredibly impressive high-tech effect I just did with my hand. I know I handle everything here and stay updated with the latest technology. No one should say I'm not a digital native. At least a somewhat talented mime. But seriously, after that the reach went down, and now to address a serious topic. Many of you noticed that I had significant health problems in the second half of 2024. There was much less content, fewer streams and fewer videos, and I often had to cut streams short. The reason was that I developed multiple, that is, various health problems. Problems with muscles and tension, problems with my eyes, ocular migraines, problems with my teeth, chronic toothaches, various things. It felt like everything possible came together. And then that's when I realized what it means to be self-employed. Because you don't have a safety net, you don't have a backup, there's no one there to catch you. During that time, I was able to work less. What was especially frustrating were the streams I had to stop because of ocular migraines. When I suddenly got golden spots in my field of vision, when it sparkled, when more and more of the screen was covered with golden flickering in my field of vision, and I had to stop a stream within a few minutes, maybe even one for which a publisher had booked me. There were cases like that too. Those were really tricky situations, and that also led me to just perform worse. So I looked into the cameras less, I was insecure. I quickly realized it's also because, for example, when I look at the chat a lot and constantly switch my gaze between the screen, the camera, and the chat, it actually tends to cause eye migraines. Then for a while, I just did the bare minimum, barely looked into the camera, barely looked at the chat. I also noticed that in the numbers, in the reach, because the connection to the audience broke off a bit, dropped off a bit, there were also health problems, worse performance in front of the camera at that time. And I managed to get the ocular migraines under control after a few months. After I tried out several neurologists, after a bit of trial and error, I finally found one who was really good, who is good in Cologne, and who gave me a medication that I've been taking ever since, once a day in the evening. And that has led to the probability of my ocular migraines dropping drastically. It's not that they're completely gone, but before they used to happen maybe 2 or 3 times a month, and now it's just once a quarter. That makes a big difference to my quality of life. And that's only possible that it's so rare now because I've set a few rules of behavior for myself. I take a lot more breaks during the streams. That means every 30 to 50 minutes I interrupt the streams for several minutes, get up, step away from the screen, move away from it, drink something, look out the window, relax my eyes, and then come back. I stick to this strictly. And every time I do that, when it comes to viewership, some of my Twitch viewers leave. Every time I take a break of just 3 minutes or 3.5 minutes on Twitch, 10% of the viewers I had before are gone afterwards. They just keep watching other content creators. Some of them come back over the next half hour, and then the viewership gradually builds back up. Then I take a short break and then they're gone again. And all of this ultimately leads to lower reach compared to the competition because they don't need such breaks. People with better health who might also be a bit younger sometimes do really long streams. There are people who do 8, 10, even 12-hour streams. I myself don't do my streams that long anymore. There was a time when I experimented with long streams. It's too hard on my body. I don't do that anymore. My streams usually run for 4 hours, or on some days 4.5 hours, and in rare cases 5 hours or 5.25 hours after that. That's it. After that I stop and I'm exhausted. And after that, by the way, I always rest for about 2 hours until I've calmed down. That means if I stream until midnight, for example, then it's clear that I won't be in bed before 2 a.m. because I just need that long to wind down. By the way, these breaks I take also mean that I can't participate in certain events. For example, I no longer participate in the Civilization streams, Pete's meets Mitt, in those multiplayer streams. Many other possible collaborations or partnerships with other Twitch streamers are also not possible because they require you to stream and hang out together for a very, very long time without a break. And all these events are suitable for quickly growing your reach and gaining additional exposure through these collaborations. That's the best way to become known, by joining forces with other streamers and simply supporting each other. And for the reasons mentioned, most of these formats are not feasible for me. That also has a direct impact on reach. And after this ended, and overall I spent about half a year, the second half of 2024, dealing with health issues. By now I've found a way to get through my days well, with my health back on track. But at the end of the day, I now work about a third less. I have about a third less streaming time than all the years before. That means before I had 6 program slots per week. I streamed on 5 evenings, streamed on 5 days, 1 game each time. And on Sundays used to be long ones. Those lasted about 7 hours with 2 program slots. That adds up to 6 program slots, 6 program spots per week. Now I only do 4 streams per week. Tuesdays, Thursdays, Saturdays, Sundays, each in the evening, and the Sunday stream is just normal length. That means instead of 6 slots, there are only 4 slots per week. I said that's a third less. Yes, it's a third less, and that also means it doesn't necessarily mean a third less income, but it means a third fewer videos, and it also means less reach. Because, simple rule of thumb, the more you stream on Twitch, the more viewers you get. I'm streaming for shorter periods, I'm no longer participating in events, and my overall streaming time has decreased by a third. All of this has led to my reach dropping even further, and I've had to cut back everywhere in all these sources of income. All these different sources of income that I listed above have been scaled down a bit due to the lower reach. I'm now earning less because of the drop in reach. I don't want to give the impression that I'm in a dire situation. Please don't misunderstand. It's still okay. I was able to build up a cushion during the lucrative COVID years, and everything is okay. I don't have to go around with a hat here and say, please folks, give me a little donation, otherwise I'll have to stop tomorrow. But it's clear that I also like to use a video like this one to encourage you as Amazon Prime customers to get a Twitch Prime subscription, or maybe to get interested in Patreon or whatever else, because all of that helps me to be able to do this job. There was one more thing that really hurt my reach, and that was Civilization 7. Generally, streaming and showing current strategy and city building games on YouTube, that's the core of the channel. But there are 2 main game series involved. One is the other series, the other is Civilization. Both are kind of pillars in the program. The program would be possible, conceivable without these 2 pillars, but it's hard to imagine. And I really benefited from the great quality of Civilization 6, but Civilization 7 has disappointed many people, including me, at release. I imagined Civ 7 to be better than it actually was. At some point during the pre-release phase, I already made my first ups and downs, thumbs up, thumbs down videos, together with Azelman for the channel, where I listed what I like and what I don't like about this game. A thumbs up and thumbs down video, something I wouldn't have had to make before for Civilization 6. And over time and through many games, I've noticed more criticism than I had at the beginning, simply because you only notice a lot of things when you play a game for a longer time. The missing 4th age, the problems in the user interface, but these are all things, problems with the victory conditions, these are all things that have bothered me. And they've bothered you too. The problem is that with the release of Civilization 7, which wasn't a bad game, but it was a game that fell short of expectations. With the release, our Civilization community has split into 2 parts. One half swears by Civ 6, thinks Civ 7 is mostly lame, and keeps playing Civ 6. The other half thinks Civ 7 is better than Civ 6, and doesn't play Civ 6 anymore. Each half has little understanding for the other. Some people can't even imagine that the other group still exists, but those are actually the 2 halves. Those are the 2 halves into which our Civilization community has split. That means, specifically, if I make a Civilization 6 video or do a Civilization 6 stream series, only half of the people are there, namely that half. And if I do the whole thing for Civilization 7, then the other half is there, and in any case, it's only half as many people as before. I also clearly notice all of this in terms of reach. I have high hopes now with the Test of Time update, which is coming out this spring. I think if I had to guess now, I'd say it should come out at the end of April or the beginning of May. A lot of things will get even better then. We'll take another close look at the game. To sum up, where do I stand as a self-employed person? I have to stay wide awake. I always have to stay wide awake. As of today, the situation is that I really have to stay on my toes every single day, and I have to look at where I stand. You have no idea how often I check my internal data, my spreadsheets, and my lists. What did I earn in the last few months or in the last quarter? Which income streams are working? Is the whole concept viable? Where am I making more money and where do I need to make adjustments? It's all like, yes, like being self-employed where you're constantly drowning in spreadsheets and have to check if the business model you've built is still working. Because that's the big difference compared to someone who works somewhere as an employee. He couldn't influence the operation of your company. You're not responsible for him. You're simply given numbers. Your work environment is simply set by management or the owners. I myself am both the employee and the owner all in one, and I somehow have to shoulder that myself. As of today, everything is secure. I don't have to worry right now that I would have to close up shop tomorrow. The numbers are right at the moment. Everything is okay, but I have to stay on the ball. I always have to stay active and also always be active on Patreon. I want to point it out again, and I'm not ashamed. Use your Twitch Prime, your Amazon Prime subscriptions, maybe take an interest in Patreon. There's the link to the Patreon page, and consider whether the program, if you can afford it, is maybe worth a voluntary contribution. Thank you for your attention. I hope you enjoyed it and that this video gave you some added value, a little bit of insight. See you next time.